by order of the Emperor of Nilfgaard, for the murder of the wounded, looting, cannibalism, you are hereby sentenced to death by hanging or torment.
Evil is evil. Lesser, greater, middling, makes no difference.
Bring her down. Do it my way. You like that, you get the hammer. Kick her teeth in.
The degree is arbitrary, the definition's blurred. If I'm to choose between one evil and another, I'd rather not choose at all.
Just make it quick, Geralt. What the?
Close your eyes.
Hit him! What are you doing?
Killing monsters.
The Witcher 3 is considered the best action RPG in gaming's short history is that it makes us feel like a Witcher. The details, mechanics, quest design, and other elements that immerse us in this experience are cleverly thought out. And these ideas are not just on paper. They're brilliantly integrated into the game. One of the aims of this video is to examine these elements in detail. Why is it that with some games we get incredibly bored on a second playthrough, but with The Witcher 3 we can play it multiple times without losing interest? I've just started it for the third time. I first played it on my PS4, then twice on PC, but I was just as eager as if I were playing it for the first time. The Witcher 3 captivated me so deeply that even after hours of gameplay, I couldn't get it out of my mind. I struggled to focus on anything else because I kept wondering what kinds of stories, adventures, and items were waiting for me. When I finished it, I felt a sense of emptiness, unsure if any other game could fill that void, though thankfully that feeling didn't last too long. Reflecting on the magic of The Witcher 3, I came to understand why it's so replayable. There are many reasons, and one of the main ones is that The Witcher 3 is like a fairy tale anthology. The game is filled with diverse stories, characters, enemies, villains, and quests. In the game, we can hardly distinguish between side quests and main quests because nearly all side quests are as adventurous as the main ones. The camera angles, carefully written dialogues, and game-changing choices found in the main quests are also present in the side quests. While making this video, I found it quite difficult to differentiate which of the recorded clips were side quests, contracts, or activities. This alone is proof of the high quality of quests in The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3 doesn't just tell us what a great RPG is. It proves it through experience. Throughout the quests, we encounter a word frequently seen in the book series: destiny. The Witcher 3 inspired me to think about what fate truly means. Fate is simply the result of the many choices we make, leading us to one of various outcomes. The choices and outcomes are written, yet the choice itself is in our hands. Foolish choices might lead to a bad ending, a hellish conclusion, whereas moral and wise choices lead to a good ending, a heavenly outcome. Just like in Geralt's case, no matter what we do, we can never change the choices and endings that are written for us. We can't add new ones. This is how The Witcher 3 managed to change my understanding of fate. In many parts of the game, we experience the mechanic of coincidence as a twist of fate. For example, during a side quest, we encounter someone we know and assist them in their case. Even a small side quest branches out and provides an experience as adventurous as the main quests. Rather than NPC behavior, it was the twist of fate that made the world feel alive to me. So, despite The Witcher 3 not having a particularly strong AI, it still feels like a vibrant world, thanks to the characters we encounter during quests and the events they bring about. We don't just undertake a side or main quest to develop our character or to experience a good story. We also wonder what impact these quests will have on other ones. For example, in one side quest, we banish the ghost of a woman named Claire, but her story doesn't end there. She has turned into a Noonwraith, a specific type of ghost. To become a Noonwraith, a woman must be brutally murdered on the happiest day of her life, her wedding day. The main reason she remains bound to this world is an object given to her as a wedding gift. After finding this item and putting her tormented soul to rest, we later meet a hunter who tells us about a lord and his son, Florian. We learn that this hunter had a romantic relationship with the lord's son. Later, while completing another side quest, Claire's name comes up again, and we begin to understand more about what happened to her. The reason she was brutally murdered is due to the terrible things she said about Florian. In the main quest, we hear about the Lord's son, and by combining it with what we learned from Claire's experiences, we piece together this story, encountering stories from side quests in the main one and working through them to solve the narrative gave me goosebumps. It's not just that. In many side quests, we can connect the backstory through main quest dialogues, notices on bulletin boards, and village gossip. That gives us a huge reason to complete every side quest. Even for the smallest quest given by townspeople, there was no slacking. It's clear they didn't think, players won't even notice these quests, so why should we go to so much trouble? Why write special dialogues, involve voice actors, and set up scenes for minor quests? Most players will ignore these anyway. Instead, they designed even the smallest quest to the quality of a main quest. This is one of the factors that make The Witcher 3 a masterpiece. At one point in the game, we take on a side quest called The Lord of Undvik. In this quest, we set sail to a different island and encounter a creature and character we wouldn't even see in the main quests. As we progress, we learn more about the person we're pursuing and his crew, and we start completing tasks within the quest itself. We find one member of the lost crew, a man named Folan, whom we take along to investigate what happened to the crew. Folan reacts to things we uncovered during the investigation, and without him, we wouldn't have seen his responses or heard his insights on the events. Having this NPC with us enhances our understanding of what happened. They even crafted dialogues assuming we'd save him. We find the king candidate, help him kill the giant, and contribute to him earning the title of Giant Slayer. Later, it comes to the king's selection. Here, we have to choose between two candidates, not a typical decision screen, but rather a king selection screen. The person we help becomes king. I chose to support the woman as her decision-making, speech style, and emotional control made me sympathize with her. After helping her, she was chosen as queen. Experiencing this quest led me to this conclusion. This game has high replayability because if I'd chosen the other candidate, I'd have embarked on a different adventure. And this isn't only true for side quests. Many quests allow for different outcomes based on your choices. Seeing the different results of different decisions alone makes this game worth replaying multiple times. The quests you overlook or dismiss with exclamation marks may actually lead you to grand adventures. One of the details that made me fall in love with The Witcher 3 was how even the smallest quests could branch out into unexpected paths. For example, a simple contract to hunt a vampire can turn into an adventure of surprising depth. You might talk to a peasant about a teleporting tower and try to shed light on this mysterious incident. When you enter the tower, you encounter an NPC from another world, Kuvir. The mystery suddenly turns into a mission to rescue someone. Even the smallest quests add something to the game's lore. We can see that the side quests are crafted with care by observing the traces left by the people in these places. For instance, we might enter a house and notice a photo of a woman with her brother. Geralt responds to this image. It's not just the stories in these quests that are thoughtfully written. The places where these quests occur are also meticulously designed down to the smallest detail. Geralt's reactions to objects and events around him enhance the liveliness of the game. I believe these reactive mechanics make a game feel alive. Another detail that made me feel like I was part of a living world was eavesdropping on the conversations around me. When two NPCs are talking about wraiths, for example, Geralt interjects, saying something like, "Wraiths aren't as you think, rookies." Eavesdropping like this also gives us a preview of possible quests. Even someone who has read the entire The Witcher book series can enjoy this game because nearly every quest is reimagined in ways that differ from the books. In fact, The Witcher video game series serves as a continuation of the book series. For example, in one part of the game, we receive a quest about a djinn. This quest was inspired by an adventure in the book The Last Wish. There's even a moment in the quest where Dandelion and Geralt recall their previous adventure with a different type of djinn. In other words, not every quest mirrors the events in the books. Each is uniquely interpreted. This alone can make fans of the Witcher book series play the game for hours. Although these games continue the book series, it's possible to play without reading the books or playing the first two games, as you can gather knowledge about the lore from the bestiary, the books you find around the world, and the dialogues. The game itself is sufficient, and the information you gather will make you feel like a true Witcher. The compendium lets you learn everything about the game. Instead of making us read pages of text, the compendium briefly introduces every creature and character, which is truly commendable. I see the main quests not as tasks but as pieces of a main story, which, when pieced together, form an adventure-filled tale. This story is about finding Ciri and stopping the Wild Hunt, which drives our journey. What makes The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt special isn't its main storyline, but the people we encounter and the quests they give us during our journey. These quests and contracts are some of the details that make us feel like true monster hunters. Throughout the game, I've been surprised, amused, angry, excited, and curious. The unpredictable twists, clever storytelling, and depth of side quests are enough to keep you playing. You can tell the side quests are carefully written by their plot twists, natural dialogues, and the rich adventures they offer, sometimes as deep as the main quests. Even after a 10th playthrough, there will still be side quests left untouched in hidden corners. If The Witcher 3 had only a linear main quest, I don't think it would reach the level of a masterpiece. It would be a decent game with an above-average story. In fact, if you remove the open-world structure from The Witcher 3, the game loses much of its appeal. For instance, The Witcher 3 without its open world means no contracts, no treasure hunts, no choices, no herb gathering, and most importantly, no Witcher feeling. What do I mean by the Witcher feeling? Imagine wandering in an open world, entering a village, and checking the notice board for contracts. You read the stories and understand the people's desperate need for your help. The notice boards aren't just for contracts. They also contain complaints, warnings, and news. From these, you can get a sense of a village's mood. I think reading these notices is quite important. If someone mentions that they're wealthy, we can raise the contract price significantly when bargaining. The bargaining mechanic isn't there for nothing. Each NPC negotiates differently. If we've heard or read that an NPC is struggling financially, we might ask for a lower fee, whereas if the NPC is wealthy, we'll raise our rate. While working on a contract, you spot an exclamation mark on the map. Approach the NPC you've encountered by chance, ask what's troubling them, and try to assist. Without an open world, you wouldn't have these moments, and we'd miss out on the monster hunting experience. When creating an open world, it's important to build it around a story that supports that design. The Witcher stories provide an ideal foundation for an RPG action game because the stories, characters, and villains in the books lend themselves perfectly to such a game. The monster hunter, Geralt of Rivia, pursues the Wild Hunt, encountering cities, towns, and villages along the way, where he takes on quests to improve his equipment and combat skills. This setup makes us feel like a true Witcher. Some side quests can test our character. For example, someone might try to bribe us to kill an innocent person, and if we refuse, that person might try to kill us instead. Killing someone, taking bribes, or making choices that a bad person would make doesn't affect the game's ending. There's no honor system in the game like in Red Dead Redemption 2. While minor choices don't alter the main storyline, they can impact the progression of the quest itself. In some quests, it's up to us whether to stir things up or not, and most situations can be resolved with either good or bad outcomes. Even though The Witcher 3's world is wild, we often see the benefits of doing good deeds. For example, if we choose to refuse payment from a person whose child is sick, the NPC might reward us with something more valuable than money. This could be a rune, a formula, or an item important for character development. Throughout the game, we need to make decisions carefully because even a small inconsistency can come back to haunt us later on. For instance, if we tell a guard we're a cook in one quest, but the woman with us tells the next guard we meet that we're a swordsmanship instructor, the guard might confront us, saying we're a fraud for claiming to be a cook just a few minutes earlier. This choice system is something we also experience in the Walking Dead game series. Although most choices we make in this game don't affect the ending, they do impact the world around us. Important decision-making moments aren't just added for no reason. For example, if we choose to buy the soldiers a drink instead of killing them at a certain point, one of them will recognize us later on saying, "Hey, it's the guy who bought us a drink," and initiate a dialogue with us. If we had killed him back then, he wouldn't be around to have this dialogue. Similarly, if we take money from a certain character at the start of the game, he'll think of us as greedy and won't reveal his name. This would prevent us from giving his name to the innkeeper, which would have led her to offer everything on the house. While the yellow choices affect later scenes, the lighter-colored ones are just for information. When selecting the yellow choices, we consider the consequences because, as I said, different choices can bring different outcomes. This aspect of The Witcher 3 makes it highly replayable. Although the lighter options usually don't lead to different outcomes, they can be important as they may unlock new yellow choices or provide valuable information for our quests. In a game where information is crucial, I recommend not overlooking these choices. Time-limited decision sequences add a bit of tension to the game. Having to make a choice within a short time frame while also contemplating the consequences creates an interesting feeling. If we don't make a choice, fate decides for us. In a way, these moments allow us to shape our own destiny until the very end of the game. In the game, there are sections with only one decision option, and I couldn't figure out why they were included. In these cases, before hunting down a creature, we can change our minds if we decide we're not strong enough and want to postpone the hunt. However, in dialogue scenes with NPCs, why is there only one choice? Wouldn't it have been better if the character automatically chose in these single-option decisions? Even in these cases, being forced to decide makes us say, "Come on, let fate decide here at least." Once made, the decisions don't disappear in these choice sequences. Choices that have already been made could be removed. In two-option choices, if we select one, the character should automatically pick the remaining choice, since this would somewhat speed up the game's pace. The persistence of past choices might be due to the possibility of wanting to listen to the dialogue again, but a transcript option in the menu could have served this purpose. Among the many quests, the one where I had to search for Dandelion was quite tiresome. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe I was annoyed by his pointless chatter and tone, or perhaps the long dialogues were what bored me. In some quests, we need to follow NPCs, but this is not as tedious as in Assassin's Creed games. The NPC adjusts to our running speed. Additionally, throughout the game, we follow allied NPCs rather than enemies, which I think is a practical and thoughtful detail. In The Witcher 3, almost every quest we encounter has a background story. Even in the smallest treasure hunts, we witness a story. These stories make it clear that treasure chests, whether underwater or in other places, are not just randomly placed. There's a reason they are there, and the game successfully conveys that to us. Whenever we start the game, we encounter scenes that remind us where we left off in our adventure. Decorating the loading screen with such scenes is a clever design choice. As each time we watch them, we think, "That's where I was, right?" This adventure is really starting to deepen. Although these scenes don't directly add to our journey, they serve as a reinforcement, motivating us to continue where we left off. The Witcher 3 offers the player a vast amount of freedom. For example, completing quests is optional. Just because we've picked up a side quest doesn't mean we have to finish it immediately. When we start a quest, other quests and activities aren't disabled. We can switch between tasks whenever we want, wherever we want. While this may seem minor, it actually elevates the freedom that The Witcher 3 offers to a high level. The Witcher 3 has some of the best music I've ever heard in a video game. These tracks significantly strengthen the game's atmosphere. Thanks to the music, we can deeply feel both the dark and bright sides of the medieval setting. This game has plenty of elements to relieve our boredom. For instance, if we're tired of doing main quests, we can immediately switch to secondary ones. Believe me, the events in these side stories are often better than many of the events in the main story. If we get tired of secondary quests, we can take on contracts. If we get tired of contracts, we can go treasure hunting. By treasure hunting, I mean the question-marked locations on the map. I think they could have reduced the number of these question-marked areas or hidden them on the map because if we spend an hour looting these places, we become extremely powerful. From these locations, we can find powerful runes, legendary swords, armor, formulas, and upgrade items. This reduces the need to spend money in the game. Since we're already strengthening our character through side quests and other activities, we rarely visit a shop, and we don't even feel the need to glance at the items sold by the blacksmith. When we start feeling that our character is overpowered, treasure hunts lose their charm, but the scenery draws us back in. Even just looking at these landscapes, we can easily see how massive The Witcher 3 truly is. As we gallop on our horse through torn-up paths, over green grass, through silver-like shimmering puddles, golden moist sands, and among the fluffy ferns, we keep riding. Although the horse's movements don't give the impression of a real horse, the landscapes we witness together manage to make us fall in love with this game, especially as we ride through the forest, hearing the sounds of nature and the beautiful music playing in the background. We experience a feeling that very few games can provide. Thanks to these scenes, The Witcher 3 has become one of the most enjoyable games for horseback riding. Considering that their previous game, The Witcher 2, was a semi-linear experience, it's miraculous that CD Projekt Red produced such a game. Even an established game studio like Rockstar Games struggles with creating such vast open worlds. I was quite surprised to see a company like CD Projekt Red, with only a handful of games to their name, make one of the best action RPG games in history like The Witcher 3. CD Projekt Red's secret to success isn't greed for money. It's the ability to entertain players and draw them into the worlds they create. I adore game companies that put players first, relegating money to second or even third place. Even though Cyberpunk 2077 wasn't as successful in terms of its open world, it did just as well as The Witcher 3 when it comes to quest design and storytelling. When we compare the world of The Witcher 3 to this game, we can see that Cyberpunk 2077's world is more detailed. The Witcher 3 has a world similar to Red Dead Redemption 2's. Instead of a metropolis filled with skyscrapers, mega buildings, and vehicles, it has a medieval atmosphere decorated with rural areas, horses, villages, and small Celtic-style houses. Designing an open world like this is simpler than Cyberpunk 2077's. Anyway, I'll explain in detail soon why it's actually an excellent game. The Witcher 3 indeed has an enormous world. It includes regions like Velen, Novigrad, the Sakalaga Isles, White Orchard, and Kaer Morhen, hidden within the Wilde Mountains. You can spend long periods in these places, taking on quests and developing your character. Each region has its own unique atmosphere, story, and residents. My favorite was the atmosphere of Sakalaga. Each island had a beautiful landscape that was unique in its own way. The language people speak and their Viking-like nature, along with the massive fortress carved into the mountain and the quests, completely captivated me. The Sakalaga Isles could have been an ideal world for The Witcher 4. There's around 15 hours, maybe more, of adventure here, but they decided to combine Sakalaga and other regions into one game. If Ubisoft had made this game, regions like Novigrad, Velen, White Orchard, Sakalaga, and Kaer Morhen would have been spread across separate games. For example, we would have seen White Orchard in The Witcher 1, Velen in 2, Novigrad in 3, the Sakalaga Isles in 4, and Kaer Morhen in 5. But Ubisoft's Witcher games would have been average and dull, delivering the same bland experience we get with Assassin's Creed and Far Cry games. The Witcher 3's vast world also contributes to its status as one of the best RPGs in history. In such an expansive world, I generally avoided fast travel because while moving from quest to quest, I could take on new missions, witness breathtaking landscapes, encounter NPCs seeking help, or find other activities. Every time I traveled, I couldn't take my eyes off the map in the top right corner because a quest, treasure, monster nest, place of power, or occupied village could appear at any moment. There are so many reasons to avoid using fast travel. While wandering the open world, I might come across a hanged body with a note on the pole explaining why this person was executed. Such a small detail encourages us to notice even more details, making us eager and curious to explore the world further. What's fascinating is that we wander the open world, witness beautiful landscapes, and complete quests without any loading screens. Tired of the landscapes? Then let's start collecting plants to the tune of incredible music. While soaking in the scenery, we notice many plant icons on the map and hop off our horse to gather resources from this fertile land. Enjoying the scenery while gathering herbs is an experience you won't find in any other RPG. Normally, I'm not into plants or alchemy. I usually prefer crafting weapons and armor over potions. But in this game, I wanted to collect various plants and use them to make different potions. When we grow tired of doing all these things, we often realize that our inventory has filled up with numerous items. At this point, we head to the blacksmith to dismantle them. We acquire new materials, order a good weapon or armor from the blacksmith, or have runes removed from our sword. In other words, we give our character a nice polish at the blacksmith. With a brand new and more powerful character, we accept a higher level contract and continue our adventure where we left off. And this cycle continues for hours. Such a thing is no coincidence. People have genuinely put in a lot of thought about how to keep the player engaged in the game for as long as possible. When we take a closer look at this formula for keeping the player engaged, we might think The Witcher 3 was designed to drain our time. But tell me, how can a work of art that enhances a few hours of your life, takes you away from this world, and offers you different stories and experiences be considered a waste of time? If the quests in The Witcher 3 were solely about time wasting, then we could call this game boring. But the purpose of this game is to immerse the player in the world of The Witcher, to momentarily distance them from their worries, and to make them feel like a Witcher. While The Witcher 3 does expose us to the grim realities of the life we're escaping, facing these challenges is an incredibly entertaining experience. Here, true tales are told, not the kind that deceive children. Today's versions of Snow White, Little Red Riding Hood, and other famous fairy tales are, in reality, wild and bloody stories. The fairy tales told to children today show a false face of life rather than its true nature. When those children grow up and face the real world, they feel its harshness, and this often delays their maturity. In The Witcher 3, we witness authentic fairy tales and experience the harsh truths of life up close. The outcomes of the tales here are nothing like those in fake children's stories. Here, the weak are crushed under the boots of the strong, or torn apart in the claws of monsters. The dark fairy tales of The Witcher 3 unfold in the Northern Realms. This region consists of 4 kingdoms: Kedwin, Redania, Temeria, and Aedirn. When Nilfgaard reached the height of its power, it began invading the north. Among these kingdoms, the most formidable is the Kingdom of Redania. Radovid V, despite being a ruthless monarch, is exceptionally clever and Nilfgaard's worst nightmare. However, the problem is that Nilfgaard is not just an empire that conquers lands through war. It also succeeds in taking over many towns, villages, and cities without destroying them, thanks to its wealth and rich culture. Against Emperor Emir Var Emrys' expansionist policies, neither King Radovid nor most other kingdoms can do much. Through Emir's cunning strategies, he incites racial conflicts, manipulates people with powerful propaganda, and manages to collapse many kingdoms from within. Radovid's greatest mistake in this grueling war was initiating a purge against sorceresses. Emir took advantage of this by using the sorceresses who fled the persecution to his benefit, fueling their desire for revenge. The scars of this great war can be seen in many parts of the game. Wandering the open world, encountering battlefields, speaking with refugees, and becoming a part of this conflict offered a deeply immersive experience. The dark world of The Witcher 3 is perfectly suited for such intricate lore. We can also say that the political climate plays a significant role in darkening this world. Eternal Fire Cult has infiltrated every corner of Novigrad, and King Radovid has greatly expanded their authority. He granted them every right, including the power to kill. The priests of the Eternal Fire and the witch hunters reminded me of medieval inquisitors. They openly burn sorceresses and those who do not worship the Eternal Fire alive. Even the smallest criticism of their faith is considered blasphemy, resulting in massacres. Those who refuse to worship the Eternal Fire are tortured and forced to convert. Beyond the Eternal Fire, we also see a variety of other beliefs in this grim tale. Throughout the story, we encounter many characters who believe in everything from pagan deities to monstrous creatures. The world of The Witcher 3 is teeming with diverse races and creatures, all stemming from an event called the Conjunction of the Spheres. About 1,500 years ago, This cataclysmic event transformed the Witcher universe into its current state. Elves, dwarves, vampires, and other races and creatures from different realms were trapped within a single dimension. Following this event, humans learned how to wield magic. According to elven legends, humans set foot on the continent during the conjunction because their own world was destroyed. These humans eventually mastered the power of chaos, giving rise to the class we now know as sorcerers. Many believe that sorcerers can create something out of nothing, but in reality, they shape what already exists. A simple example: without the elements, sorcerers would be powerless. Humans eventually armed themselves against the ancient races and managed to defeat them, establishing dominance in this world. However, the creatures did not remain idle. They continued to attack villages, towns, and cities. In response, the Witcher schools were founded, bringing us to the present day. This history shows how deep the Witcher universe is, filled with countless stories waiting to be told. The atmosphere of The Witcher 3 owes much to its clothing, music, Old English, and accents. The architecture of villages, towns, and cities authentically reflects the medieval period. A particularly immersive detail is the use of Anglo-Saxon runes on signs, enhancing the game's atmosphere. While the use of modern accents by Geralt and a few other characters might seem like it weakens the medieval vibe, imagine Geralt speaking in an Anglo-Saxon accent. It would be hilariously out of place. The sorceresses in the game also speak with a modern accent, perhaps to highlight their vast vision and exceptional intelligence. Like humans, every creature in the game has a weakness. What makes Witchers stand out isn't just their knowledge of these vulnerabilities, but also their mastery of the sword, their mutations, and their instincts. These factors make them the most fearsome nightmares of both monsters and men. Geralt's lack of visible emotions, such as joy, anger, or happiness, might seem odd at first. However, this behavior is perfectly normal for him since he is a mutated being. The mutagens have stripped him of his humanity, transforming him into an emotionless creature. Yet, deep within, he retains faint traces of a conscience. Mutated Witchers lack feelings like fear, excitement, pride, or resentment. Though they are sterile, they can still experience love and passion quite intensely. Witchers have many enemies, and Geralt even more so. From witch hunters to Nilfgaardian soldiers, the Wild Hunt, the ancient elven race, the Ladies of the Wood, and countless other monsters and humans. Geralt constantly battles adversaries from all sides. This game provides a clear picture of what it means to be a Witcher. A Witcher is foremost a tracker, with swordsmanship coming second. Knowledge is paramount, and through this vast expertise, Witchers track and neutralize creatures. The game features a variety of enemies, each divided into subcategories with unique behaviors. Just as humans can be noble or ignoble, honorable or dishonorable, deceitful or honest, the creatures in the game are similarly distinguished by nature's diverse gifts. For instance, while some types of vampires prefer alcohol-infused blood, others favor the blood of women. The most intriguing character I encountered in the game was Jixtra, also known as Reuven. He has a remarkable grasp of rhetoric, which naturally makes him an excellent politician. This man has connections in places you wouldn't even suspect and could uncover the name of your third cousin once removed. He analyzes your routine and adjusts his attitude accordingly. If you're in a good mood, he tailors his threats and insults to suit that mood. If you're in a bad mood, he could drive you to the brink of despair. It's not his appearance, but his words and the sentences he constructs that make him more frightening than the ugliest monster you could imagine. Jixtra was once the head of King Vizimir of Redania's secret service, essentially a spy. His professional experience plays a significant role in making him such a dangerous figure in the underworld. There used to be a saying about him in King Vizimir's court: if it's pitch dark outside and Jixtra claims it's noon, the sun should start worrying about what's coming. This saying illustrates the extent of his authority and the profound influence he has over his subordinates. Jixtra possesses an extraordinary political instinct, knowing exactly when to retreat, threaten, or kill. His talent in politics and omniscient demeanor make him my second favorite character. My first favorite, of course, is Geralt of Rivia, the Butcher of Blaviken. We learn about Geralt of Rivia's story through Dandelion's ballads. Geralt owes his worldwide fame as a witcher to a talented bard like Dandelion. Ballads are musical poems that narrate the tales of heroes, accompanied by a few instruments. With his captivating voice and vivid imagination, Dandelion successfully spread Geralt's stories through these ballads across the world. Almost every bard recites the ballads of Geralt of Rivia. Every bit of lore in the universe, including the game's quests, contracts, and cinematics, is Dandelion's work. We only know Geralt through his ballads and view the life of the famous Witcher through Dandelion's lens. In this world, there is a great war. Such a war inevitably brings about a surge in monsters, missing persons, and other tragic events. And more tragedies mean more opportunities for profit. This is why Witchers enjoy visiting war-torn cities. Our protagonist, Geralt, has set out for the Northern Kingdoms. His goal is not just to profit from the war, but also to eliminate the Wild Hunt and find Ciri. A grave threat looms from the south. The black-armored Nilfgaardians are destroying everything in their path, seizing the Northern Kingdoms one by one from Radovid's grasp. On top of this war, the emergence of the Wild Hunt, one of Ithlin's prophecies, has plunged the world of The Witcher 3 into utter chaos. In this chaotic environment, Geralt's first priority is to find Ciri. If Ciri falls into the hands of the Wild Hunt, not only the world but the entire universe will be in peril. The Elder Elves gave Ciri a nickname, Lady of Space and Time. The power within her holds the potential to alter the balance of the universe and prevent an apocalyptic event known as the White Chill. Ithlin is one of the most powerful sorceresses in the Witcher universe. Unlike many who misuse their power for evil, she used hers for good, healing countless elves and humans. Nearly all her prophecies have come true. One of these prophecies pertains to the Wild Hunt, also known as the Wraiths of Morhaug, a dark group made up of the most powerful elven race. In the elven language, they are known as Enel. The other elves we frequently encounter in the game belong to the Ainsed race. From makeup to weapons of war, elves have contributed to nearly every aspect of life. Cities like Novigrad, Oxenfurt, and others were built on elven ruins. Humans gradually took over the lands of the lesser elves, the Ainsed, eventually leaving them homeless. These elves were forced to live as fugitives in their own lands. For instance, the Scoia'tael, an elven guerrilla group, resorted to violent rebellion, murdering humans, crippling trade and logistics, and terrorizing villages. The Enel, however, are far more intelligent and live in a different realm, forming a highly advanced society. They have developed to the extent of traveling between parallel worlds. Ciri's bloodline is tied to this elven race. She is also known as Zirel, meaning swallow in the elven language. But why are the Enel pursuing Ciri? Who carries their blood? Ciri is a hybrid, which makes her blood exceptionally rare and grants her extraordinary powers. This unique heritage is precisely what makes her invaluable to the Enel and central to their plans. Although traveling between parallel worlds is relatively simple for the High Elves, conquering these worlds is far from easy. This is why they need Ciri and are determined to fulfill Ithlin's prophecy. Her elder blood grants the possibility of dominance over time and space, but controlling such a power is incredibly challenging. This is exactly why the Wild Hunt desires her blood. If they manage to harness it, they could become as powerful as gods, masters of time and space. For example, Ciri used this power to stay in the universe of Cyberpunk 2077 for a significant period, although, unfortunately, we don't see her there in the game. The Elder Blood in Ciri enables her to travel between dimensions and communicate with beings not of this world. Such is its potency that she could potentially destroy the universe with her power. While she cannot yet fully control it, the day she does, she will become invincible. She will have the strength to eliminate the Wild Hunt, the Wraiths of Morhaug, on her own. The main objectives of the game story are to find Ciri, eliminate the Wild Hunt, and prevent the apocalypse. In certain parts of the game, we play as Ciri, which allows us to better understand her power. Unlike Geralt's story, Ciri's sections are more linear. This break from Geralt's perspective to experience another character's story and mechanics adds a refreshing touch to the game and prevents monotony. The only drawback is that we cannot develop Ciri or access her inventory. We simply cut down enemies as they appear. While her power isn't fully evident at the start, by the end of the game, when she starts taking down the Wraiths of Morhog with a single blow, her immense strength, and the danger she represents, becomes clear. Now that we've briefly touched on the game's story and lore, we can move on to the finer details and gameplay mechanics to wrap up this lengthy video. First, while the game features a plethora of books, many of them are repetitive. There are probably no more than 20 unique books. However, the contents of these books include excerpts from the Witcher novels and provide valuable insights into the game's lore. These books are not mere decorative elements but meaningful additions that enrich the world building. These books are given due attention in the game because they serve their purpose. They are educational. Beyond just helping players understand the world better, they provide valuable information even about weapons. By reading about monsters, players can learn how to prepare for battles with different strategies. In previous games, the signs we used didn't exploit enemy weaknesses. For example, Igni should ideally have little to no effect on armored foes, yet in the second game it dealt damage to all enemies regardless of type. In The Witcher 3, however, each type of enemy has specific vulnerabilities to certain signs. For instance, Igni works well against furry creatures, while Ard or Axii are effective against shielded opponents. In earlier games, maxing out Igni or Quen could essentially make you invincible. But here, the skill tree is so well balanced that you can neither become overpowered nor overly weak. That said, if you're a seasoned player, you'll know there are ways to become exceptionally powerful in The Witcher 3. Unlocking abilities alone isn't enough to enhance your signs. You also need runes. These runes can be obtained by looting the question mark locations scattered across the map. If you know what you're doing, it's possible to become overpowered by the mid-game. However, if you're new to The Witcher 3 and dive in without watching guides or tutorials, you're likely to have a far more satisfying experience than someone who already knows everything. That's because the game's core objective is to explore, complete quests, and develop your character. For example, I've played this game 3 times and enjoyed it each time, but the intense excitement of my first playthrough couldn't be replicated. There was nothing new left to learn, which diminished the thrill. However, the abundance of sights and discoveries still made the experience enjoyable. As an experienced player, I played the game on the hardest difficulty and still found it challenging. During my 70-hour playthrough, I probably died no more than 5 times. This was because I had mastered the game's mechanics. I knew how to develop my character, the optimal quest order, and the importance of oils and potions. The game includes armor sets, but they don't directly affect character progression. If you don't understand the mechanics I've mentioned, even with the best armor set, you'll struggle. One of the details that elevates The Witcher 3 to masterpiece status is that becoming stronger isn't solely about gear. In this game, a skilled player is recognized not by their equipment but by their knowledge. I only crafted the Cat School set, and by the late 20s in level, I stopped relying on sets altogether. I managed with mismatched armor and weapons I found here and there, and I still completed the game without much difficulty. Instead of focusing on crafting armor sets, my priorities were improving potions, oils, and runes, completing quests in the correct order, and delving into the lore. If you adopt similar priorities, you can complete The Witcher 3 on the hardest difficulty without much trouble. This is my best piece of advice for enjoying the game to its fullest. For first-time players, however, even the normal mode will provide a deeply satisfying experience. When attempting a second playthrough, try playing on harder difficulties and set new challenges for yourself. This will make the experience more dynamic and engaging. Plus, on your second playthrough, you'll know much more about the game, and that sense of expertise adds to the enjoyment. The skill tree, upon closer inspection, reveals how well it caters to every player's unique playstyle. With a vast array of abilities, it allows us to shape our approach and create synergies that feel personalized. As someone who prioritizes both offense and defense in nearly every RPG, I built a skill tree that reflected that balance. Early in the game, I had already upgraded my potions and oils, so I didn't feel the need to extend their durations. Instead, I primarily used signs not to deal damage but to exploit enemy weaknesses and bolster my defenses. For example, in the early stages, I equipped the first version of the Cat School set. While this set significantly boosted my damage, its major drawback was its lack of defense. To compensate, I enhanced the Quen skill in the skill tree to address my defensive shortcomings. As I approached level 30 in the mid to late game, I moved away from the cat school set. I opted for whatever decent armor and weapons I could find to improve my damage, defense, and vitality in a more balanced way. The skill tree is so well designed that it seamlessly adapts to the weapons and armor we're using at the time. It allows us to immediately unlock skills to offset weaknesses in our character's build. This flexibility is a testament to its exceptional design. For instance, even when transitioning between vastly different equipment, the skill tree offers options to maintain balance and synergy, ensuring that the gameplay remains smooth and rewarding. For example, below Geralt's health bar, there's a small toxicity bar. This bar fills up as we consume potions or supplements. When it surpasses a safe threshold, Geralt becomes poisoned, and his health starts depleting over time. However, we can turn this mechanic to our advantage. Certain skills in the talent tree allow us to gain bonuses like increased health, damage, or sign power when we exceed the toxicity threshold. This system highlights the tactical depth offered by the skill tree. While The Witcher 2 provided a satisfying combat experience, The Witcher 3 refines and expands it even further. The skill tree allows us to diversify our combat mechanics, create synergies, and enrich our combos. While fighting human enemies, I noticed a mechanic reminiscent of the posture system in Sekiro. When we break an enemy's posture, we can deliver devastating damage. Indeed, The Witcher 3 has inspired numerous games beyond Sekiro. From The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild to Red Dead Redemption 2, its influence is evident. It even paved the way for the Assassin's Creed series to evolve into an RPG-focused genre. This widespread impact is one of the many reasons The Witcher 3 is considered one of the greatest action RPGs of all time. As for horseback mechanics, there isn't much to highlight. While mounted, we can trample enemies or engage in sword combat. Although these mechanics aren't heavily emphasized, the horse significantly enhances the gameplay experience. It allows us to admire breathtaking vistas, shred enemies into pieces, and traverse long distances quickly. Just as we upgrade Geralt, we can also improve our horse, which subtly but effectively adds depth to the exploration and travel aspects of the game. However, we can only upgrade our horse through gear, such as saddles, saddlebags, and blinders. If The Witcher 3 had a bonding mechanic similar to Red Dead Redemption 2, where the horse's performance improved as we rode it and built a connection, riding could have been more engaging. For example, sharper turns or unique skills could have been added as upgrades. In the book series, we see that Geralt names every horse Roach. This is because he avoids forming emotional bonds with them during his perilous journeys. One notable feature is that we can load trophies from defeated monsters onto Roach. Unfortunately, these trophies offer no standout benefits. It would have been more satisfying if legendary trophies provided unique perks, akin to our weapons or armor. Imagine slaying a challenging beast and earning a trophies with substantial gameplay advantages. It would make monster hunting even more rewarding. Monster hunts themselves are enjoyable and often yield great rewards, such as legendary swords or runes. However, trophies feel underwhelming in comparison. A bit more emphasis on their utility could elevate the satisfaction of these hunts. As for sailing, while we can pilot boats in the game, the mechanics are minimal. There's no wind or storm dynamic like in Assassin's Creed 4, which could have made nautical exploration more engaging. Though I enjoyed some of the scenic views while sailing, such moments were rare. In a 70-hour playthrough, I spent at most 7 hours on a boat. This goes to show that even in one of the greatest action RPGs of all time, there are flaws. Perfection in art, be it games, movies, or literature, is an illusion, as art is inherently subjective. What may seem like a minor issue to one person could be a deal-breaker for another. Looting in The Witcher 3 is immensely satisfying and worth analyzing. The thrill of collecting every item and searching every corner comes from the fact that every material serves a purpose. The crafting and alchemy systems ensure that we rely heavily on these resources. Even if we don't know the exact use of most plants or materials when we gather them, we anticipate needing them later in the game. Crafting even the simplest potion, weapon, or armor often requires multiple ingredients. This design makes looting not just fun but also inherently rewarding and essential. Some games are very diverse, offering a plethora of weapons, armor, and potions, but they fail to give the player a reason to use them. Since enemies are often designed to be defeated easily, the game doesn't encourage players to collect or craft these items. In The Witcher 3, however, things are very different. Instead of finding a potion, sword, or piece of armor outright, you usually discover its formula, diagram, and schema first. This mechanic adds depth to exploration and looting. For instance, when you come across a diagram, you see the item stats and get excited about crafting it. This excitement drives you to search every corner and loot every chest to gather the required materials. The Witcher 3 pushes players to find these materials through trial and error or by thorough looting. For example, suppose you need leather, thread, and linen to craft a good piece of armor. The game's crafting system includes a dismantle mechanic, allowing you to break down useless items into components. To get thread and leather, you might need a toy doll and animal hide. You dismantle these items to obtain a few pieces of thread and leather. During a main or side quest, you may enter a location filled with materials. At first, you might not know what these materials are for, but you collect them anyway, knowing they'll eventually come in handy. The crafting system is incredibly diverse. You can dismantle old items to obtain new components, or use older materials to create fresh items. This extensive and varied crafting system is one of the main reasons looting everything you see is so enjoyable in the game. The fact that so many items are acquired through formulas rather than being handed to you directly is further proof that The Witcher 3 is no ordinary game. It's clear that a lot of thought went into its design. Thanks to these small details, you can easily spend minutes or even hours looting. This is yet another piece of evidence that The Witcher 3 is a true masterpiece. When we look at the inventory and interface, it's clear how user-friendly they are. Players of the first game will remember how tiny the item icons were, how poorly designed the inventory screen was, and how unpleasant it was to navigate. In The Witcher 3, the inventory is much more user-friendly. It's easy to identify what's what and what each slot does. Additionally, the choice of colors in the inventory is smartly done, ensuring that it's easy on the eyes and doesn't ruin the visual experience. Even though The Witcher 3 doesn't aim to impress players with small details like Zelda or Red Dead Redemption 2, some subtle elements still left a strong impression on me. For instance, at the beginning of the game, you enter an inn. If you approach the cat inside, it starts hissing at you. Elsewhere, a little child recites a not-so-flattering rhyme about the emperor, prompting his father to stop chopping wood and scold him. "If you keep saying that rhyme, they'll have us killed." The tone in the man's voice is so realistic that you can genuinely feel his fear. There were a few flaws in the game that caught my attention. I've already mentioned some of them, but now I'd like to touch on the remaining issues before wrapping up this video by briefly discussing the remastered version. One of the most glaring flaws is that a character like Geralt, a seasoned monster hunter who has survived countless battles and whose scars tell the story of his tumultuous life, can die instantly from falling from a height of just 4 meters. This oddity made me laugh and slightly diminished my view of Geralt as a character. The parkour mechanics in The Witcher 3 are lackluster. Geralt struggles to cling to ledges, and jumping from one platform to another often comes with the fear of falling. The system lacks precision, and the parkour mechanics are far from refined. Moreover, when an enemy is nearby, Geralt automatically enters combat mode. In this mode, he can't jump or grab onto ledges. The only way to exit combat mode is to kill the enemy. However, it would have made sense for Geralt to be able to exit combat mode by sheathing his sword, allowing him to jump or grab a ledge to escape. Another issue I encountered was accumulating too much money but having nothing meaningful to spend it on. Most of the time, quests rewarded me with good weapons and armor, while exploring the world yielded plenty of runes, formulas, and herbs. The game could have offered players more opportunities to spend their money creatively. For instance, instead of rewarding us with weapons and armor from quests, the game could have given us formulas or materials. If crafting weapons and armor were more expensive, we wouldn't end up wandering around with so much excess money. Toward the end of the game, it becomes clear that the developers artificially stretched the conclusion. Tasks like, talk to this person, convince this one, recruit allies by completing these quests, or visit people who helped or hurt Ciri drag out the final act. The reason for this is fairly obvious. The game aims to make the final chapter's decisions significantly impact the ending. The mechanics of fistfights, however, were severely underdeveloped. All you can do is block, perform simple or heavy attacks, and parry an enemy's strike with good timing. That's it. If the hand-to-hand combat system were as varied as swordplay, the fight tournaments could have felt far more epic and satisfying. The remastered version of The Witcher 3 sets a benchmark for other games to learn from. Graphics have been enhanced, and gameplay mechanics have been improved. My favorite change in this version was the camera angle. While the original game had a third-person perspective, the camera wasn't as close to Geralt's shoulder as it is now. It was positioned much farther back. With the new camera angle, engaging in combat and exploring the open world felt fresh and immersive, giving me the sense that I was truly playing an upgraded version of the game. Another improvement is the ability to use all signs without switching between them, but I chose not to use this feature. Strangely, I found the older mechanic more enjoyable. Perhaps it's just muscle memory, or maybe I simply preferred the classic way of switching signs. Graphically, the remaster is outstanding. Many remastered versions of games don't achieve this level of detail. In The Witcher 3, features like ray tracing, enhanced lens flare, detailed grass, upgraded textures, and improved lighting showcase the effort put into this version. To put it simply, this remaster makes you want to play the game all over again. This remastered version reminded me once again of how much I adore video games. Experiencing art that surpasses a certain level of excellence makes me the happiest person alive, and playing The Witcher 3 made me feel like the happiest person in the world. While I did notice a few flaws, the emotions I experienced while playing the game made it easy to overlook them. For me, The Witcher 3 is a masterpiece worthy of a standing ovation. The question now is, will Cyberpunk 2077 manage to impress me enough to earn its own standing ovation? Time will tell.